You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, McCaffrey's Clinical Mentoring, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, Full Script, your online dispensary, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle!
Hey guys, welcome to episode 155 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host, Luke Millette. Here's your host, Jim Chester.
Hey everybody, so today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Monique Andrews, and if you want to know more about neuroplasticity and how the effect of neuroscience is in chiropractic, stay tuned. All right, so today we have Dr. Monique Andrews. You are part of a great mastermind group that Luke and I are entrenched in called the Inner Circle. We are brought more closely together by the fearless Avengers leader of chiropractic, Dr. Ed Osborne.
Yep.
And you are coming in today from Victoria, Canada, and Luke and I are coming in today from Grand Junction, Colorado. And I believe you are episode 155 of the Chiro Hustle podcast, which is a real honor to have you on as our guest today. And I'll speak for Luke and I if I can, but it's always interesting to talk to somebody that's into the neuroscience aspect of chiropractic, because people are like, well, how does this help with the immune system? And you can't make those statements. Chiropractors can't help with the immune system. We'll get more into that. But I think that setting the table for that to be a part of our conversation today is right in your wheelhouse. But as we always do, we introduce you and then we let you kind of go into tell us what is your chiropractic story and how did you get into this beautiful profession of chiropractic? You might need a drink of coffee for that.
Yeah, no, that's a bit of a story. So you want me to go into how I got into chiropractic?
We start our shows out like that so you can kind of give
Sure.
set the stage for people to know why you're unique also in the chiropractic space.
Yeah, so I went to Palmer College in Davenport, Iowa when Guy Reekman was the president. I think it was really the glory days at Palmer. So a lot of people go, as you know, the Palmer's the fountainhead, right? And a lot of people, everybody who I met there was like, they were a third generation chiropractor, or they had some miracle story, or, it was some magical reason. And, for a long time, I didn't tell people how I ended up getting into chiropractic, because the truth is I followed a girl to chiropractic school. That's how I got there. The why I stayed changed. But, I was a bench scientist in neuroscience before going to chiropractic school. And then I, in graduate school, met my partner, the girl I followed to chiropractic school, now my wife. And she was going off to chiropractic school, and I was going off to do my PhD at McGill in Montreal. And love won. I followed her to Iowa. And I was pretty sure I was going to be a great metapractor. I thought, that chiropractic was kind of like physiotherapy, but you got to call yourself a doctor. And then in I think it was maybe my third quarter of chiropractic school, this guy was coming to speak on campus and everybody was talking about him, and I read about it and I thought he sounds like a lunatic. So I go, cause I'm open-minded. I'm a scientist. I want to look at all possibilities. And I show up for this lecture by Reggie Gold. And, about, I think maybe 30 minutes into his, 90-minute discussion that day, my whole world turned on its axis about 180 degrees. And if there's ever a point in time you can remember getting the big idea, it was at that moment. And then my trajectory in chiropractic completely changed to, I was the president of the student IFCO chapter at Palmer. So I went from, being a pretty mechanistic idea of what chiropractic was into being a really deeply philosophically rooted chiropractor. With a real, appreciation for science too. So I think that kind of makes me unique. So that's how I got here as a chiropractor.
And then what inspired you to get into all the neuro brain research that you do now?
Yeah. So again, before I became a chiropractor, I did a master's degree in neuroscience. So, chiropractic is, I don't think we're spine doctors. I think we're nervous system doctors. And it just so happens that our way to get to the nervous system, the best conduit is the spine. And it wasn't a great leap for me to be interested in neuroscience coming from that background. And so I just am thrilled with the research that's come out in the last 10 years looking at chiropractic's impact on the brain. So that's, for me to be interested in neuroplasticity and the neuroscience of chiropractic, that wasn't a great leap. That's an easy transition. That was an easy landing for me. And I feel blessed that I get to talk, all around the world on the impact of chiropractic on the brain.
So in the last 10 years of your research, what would you say is the most fascinating thing that you've learned?
Yeah, probably. And again, just to be really clear, I do not currently do chiropractic research, but I do spend a lot of time talking about it. And essentially, I'm more like a science journalist where I go out and I just consume all the information and then I put it together in a story. And probably that's if I can say this modestly, that's my gift, is the ability to string the story, the crumbs of the story really close together so that people understand it. Now, to answer your question, Luke, I think that the most exciting information that's come out of, the neuroscience and chiropractic research is some of the different methods that allow us to look at the impact of the adjustment on brain activity. So, studies out of New Zealand that look at electrophysiology, EEG studies, PET scan studies that come out of Japan, and now looking more and more at fMRI and pre and post impact on the brain, pre and post adjustment impact on the brain. That's it. Neuroplasticity is where I think chiropractic is headed. In terms of looking at what's happening clinically. We're at a point now where we need to start to pair the basic science research and the clinical science research so we can make causative rather than just correlative statements about the impact of chiropractic on the brain.
Yeah, I one of the things, Luke and I, we're journalists and filmmaker, advocates for chiropractic.
Yep.
But what we've been able to realize is that chiropractic is making a huge influence on the recovery of people with brain conditions. So if people really didn't know and they were disconnected from knowing that the brain is atop of the spinal cord, when you adjust the spinal cord, it's going to send direct influence to the brain. And I think so many times people don't really think of the body as a connected source. They think of the body as it's the brain department. It's the heart department.
Yeah, we've been educated by medicine and science to, break the body up into different pieces. And, that's the unique thing about chiropractic is the holistic perspective, and that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
But as we talk about this, we talk about people with concussions. We talk about people with depression. We talk about people with anxiety and different psychological disorders. But we realize that people that get adjusted, they start to have better improvements with concussion. They start to have better improvements with psychological concern. Let's talk a little bit about that with the research that you found.
Yeah, sure. I mean, here's the thing, right? Again, and I want to be really clear, and that is, I don't think chiropractic is a treatment for anything, that it's not a treatment for infectious disease. It's not a treatment for TBI, that really it improves the overall well-being of the organism, because by removing any interference caused by subluxation, what happens is it elevates the ability of the whole being to function at a higher level, right? So of course, anything is going to be, you're going to see changes in the body, right? The brain controls every cell, organ, and tissue in the body. When you adjust somebody, you impact the brain. Can we explain from a scientific perspective how that works? Absolutely, right? So if you have something like a TBI, we know that there's inflammation in the brain. We know that that inflammation largely gets driven by glial cells, especially astrocytes and microglia, and that when you adjust somebody, you are having an impact on that inflammatory process through the autonomic nervous system, right? So let's say when you have a trauma or an injury or even an infection, what happens is that your sympathetic nervous system gets elevated. And in an acute state, that's good, right? You want that fight or flight to kick in. But what that does is it increases cortisol levels and it increases norepinephrine and those sort of neuroinflammatory type hormones. Now, of course, we know that when you get adjusted, what happens? That dampens sympathetic output. So we're going to start to bring down that level of inflammation. Can we leap forward and say, when you adjust somebody, you reduce inflammation? No, we can't say that yet. There are studies that imply that, though. You know, there's a study in Japan that looked at salivary amylase, which is an indicator of cortisol levels, and show that that is decreased post-adjustment. Are we impacting inflammation? Are we impacting the immune system with the adjustment? Of course we are. We have to be careful how we say it, though, right? We can't say chiropractic boosts immunity because, actually we don't have the science to say that. And maybe we don't want to boost immunity. What if you are somebody with an autoimmune disorder? Wouldn't it be better if we said that we maybe have an impact on modulating output of all of the systems in the body, including the immune system? Yeah. See, I'm a bit passionate about that, about using the right words when we talk so that we don't sound like uneducated hicks.
Well, I think it's important to take somebody with your mindset and to give you the platform to speak what you know the best. And as we were off camera, that's why I mentioned to you, that's why we started a show to support chiropractors, is because Luke and I, we could say, hey, I like getting adjusted because it makes me feel better. Or, hey, I have a bunch of chiropractic colleagues that are awesome and they're really solid people and they love to take care of their community. And they have some things that they believe in. They believe in science, philosophy, and art. Hoorah. They believe in, the body that made the power that made the body heals the body. They have all these little sayings that they do.
Yeah.
And you have heroes that you've found in chiropractic. One of the first people that you mentioned during this interview is Reggie Gold.
Yep.
I'm sure that you have other people that you've looked up to as you've transitioned to become Dr. Mo Knows.
Yeah.
You probably have sourced a lot of resources from other colleagues in chiropractic, not just to have a slogan, but now to have a movement. And I think that that's really important to have people with your caliber of expertise that we can share with our audience what Dr. Mo really knows.
Thanks, Jim. It's interesting. You said about that, you said the slogans, right? And that people often hide behind those without a whole lot to put behind it. It's not to say, that the power that made the body heals the body. I believe that actually, that the power that made the body heals the body. And you mentioned Reggie Gold. And I want to tell you something interesting that Reggie said. I was told that Reggie said very near the end of his life. And that was the power that made the body heals the body until it doesn't. And understanding the science behind what we say is really important. And, I don't want to go on a tangent about this, but I just think that, I'm somebody that has one foot in the philosophy and one foot in the science. And I think that, you can pretty much find a research paper somewhere to back up just about anything that you want to say, right? Because we have research that has on all ends of the spectrum. And I think it doesn't take that much work to get some help in understanding the science. If you're going to say something like that, then wouldn't it be great if you could also back it up with some research and say, this is why, instead of just saying it and then, that's good enough. Because we're in a very different, this is very different than the Mercedes 80s. People have infinite access to information now through the internet. And just about anybody can become educated pretty quickly. Because if you dig deep, you can actually find reputable sources of information. And I think that we need to move out of that phase of, I don't have time. I'm not interested in science. It doesn't matter. Not only does it matter, it's absolutely necessary now more than ever that you understand why it is you do what you do. That's why I created Dr. Mo Knows.
Yeah, I think it gives the people a unique perspective, and to have somebody that's done the work and has become the educator. You're not just saying, "Hey, I want to create a program to give myself something else to do."
Nope. I just got really tired of lots of chiropractors just sounded like they were uneducated people making statements with nothing to back it up. When the fact is, we have some great science backing up claims like there's an innate intelligence in the body, that we're self-healing, self-maintaining, self-regulating organisms. We actually have science that demonstrates, the evidence behind those kinds of statements. So why not use them? And then you're able to have a conversation with anybody. You're able to negate any critic's comment. Anyway, don't get me started.
And now you're the co-founder of the Prana Foundation. Just for the viewers at home who might not know what that is, can you go a little bit into that and what the foundation does?
Yeah, sure. So the Prana Foundation is an organization that I created with my wife, and that really, we were seeing a lot of discord and disconnect in the profession, and for whatever reasons, misguided ambition, burdened by stress, not having support systems, we felt like there was lack of a heart-centered community. And so we wanted to create a resource for chiropractors where there was engaging content, there was good, deep personal connection that comes from a place of kindness and compassion, but also like resources like that people could use. And so really the foundation revolves around three main portals of support for our colleagues. Educational resources like webinars, master classes, my Dr. Mono's program. We do service. So we offer retreats in Costa Rica, and we're also just setting up with a couple of different nonprofit organizations here in Victoria as well in Costa Rica, so that we work tangentially with them to offer service locally. I've always believed that it's well and good to go to these exotic places and do retreats and offer service. We also need to be doing that at home. So we're also in the process of creating that here. And then the last thing that we do through the foundation is mentorship and coaching. We do that group coaching, we do individual coaching, and really that's focused on creating a safe space for people that they don't feel judged. I think that people can really only grow into the finest versions of themselves when they have a safe space to do so. And so that's really what we're trying to create with the community. And it's grown a lot. We just hit 1,000 members in our community yesterday. A lot of people access that through our free community page that's on Facebook, which is the Prana Foundation. And anybody can join. It's free. And we have great live Q&As and stuff like that on there. I just did a Q&A with Jay Comerick last week, which was really great. Felt like a fireside chat, So yeah, that's what the foundation's about. It's growing, and we're having an incredible time doing it, especially right now, like during this when everybody's at home and there's lots of time spent on social media. It's good to have quality content like this too. Your show is amazing, not just because I'm on it, but because you guys are.
Well, you mentioned something to the effect of creating like a backyard mission trip.
Yeah.
I think that that's something that we should really key in on, because I know that there's a lot of chiropractors right now that are like, they can't travel. They can travel, but they can't, to the extent that it was once like, we're going to be every weekend somewhere.
Yeah.
But I think that right now people could really lean into that idea of creating like a mission movement. They don't, like you said, you don't have to go to an exotic location.
No.
You can do that in your own backyard.
Yeah. And here's the thing, right? Like, let's be real. Chiropractic is something that not everybody can afford. And so I think it would be a great idea to any doctor watching us today to actually go out there and find some organizations in need in your local community to provide care. And that's what we did. We work with a sort of a transition house here in Victoria and we haven't had boots on the ground there yet in terms of actually being able to provide care, because we just got it set up and then this happened. And so, but we'll go in and we'll provide care to those people that otherwise wouldn't have access to it. People in transition houses and recovery programs and things like that. And that's everywhere. There's not a city, in North America that probably doesn't have transition housing that could, a community that could really use care. And I think we all have time to do that. If groups of chiropractors in different cities got together, it could be something that you did one day a month. And if you have a handful of chiropractors in a city that's willing to go to these support organizations, even one day a week, a handful of chiropractors could share that within a group and show up in these organizations one day a week. And it would only mean maybe one day a month for you individually. I think it's something that we definitely should be doing just to give back to humanity. That's real service.
Yeah, and it's getting out of the ego space. It's getting out of the financial sector.
Yeah.
And it's giving yourself the ability to, as you would do on a mission trip, you're not going there and you're asking people what their insurance plans are.
No.
You're not going there and asking people how much coin they have in their pocket to trade over for the adjustment. No. You're there. You want to adjust 100, 200 people a day if you could.
Yeah, because the impact of the chiropractic adjustment on the body, on consciousness, really. And I think that if chiropractors thought about that more, they'd probably be more interested in creating something locally outside of ego and money. And, let's put our money where our mouth is, right? Let's put our time where our mouth is. Service is about serving humanity, not just, serving your bank account. And not that I'm saying that's what chiropractors are doing, because they're not. And I, am humbled by what I see out there in our community, but I think we can always do more.
Backyard service mission trip.
Backyard service, yeah. Love it.
Take care of those that are closest to you.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And I do think, honestly, when I got into chiropractic, people asked me why I did it. I go, dude, it just made me feel better. I think that's what a lot of people say. And Luke and I will ask people, we'll maybe ask you next, a miracle story. And some of the miracle stories we hear from people are, I was on this mission trip and this guy fell off of his bike and he couldn't move his arm and his wife brought him to me. The next thing we know, we adjusted this guy. He could move his arm again. And next thing you know, they brought by the whole family the next day because we didn't speak the same language, but this guy got his functionality back through one adjustment.
Yeah.
So maybe let's lead into that. What is a miracle story that you've seen as being a practitioner?
Yeah, I was in practice in Ottawa, Canada for about a dozen years and certainly saw a lot of incredible things. I'll share this story. And that is, I had a woman that came to see me and she was in a wheelchair. And I'm not going to tell you that I adjusted her and she got up and walked. That's not what happened. And in fact, the story I'm going to tell you is a bit more about the doctoring end of it than any miraculous recovery. And in fact, she came to me and when I was doing her intake and her history, she had ALS. It had written down that she had Lou Gehrig's disease. And so I was like, crap. She's, has a terminal illness. And she said that she was told that she maybe had 18 months to live. And we get into the whole story. And I ask her, we're going through just the history part. And I say, well, what is it that I can do for you? And it was early on when I was a chiropractor and I kind of was panicking a little bit. And I'm like, oh no, does she think I'm going to save her, from this terminal illness? And she said, I just want to feel better. I know I'm probably not going to live very long, but I want to live as well as I can while I'm here. And that felt like an ominous responsibility, Anyway, this is what happened. And that is through the story and through the doctoring part of chiropractic, through my examination and my evaluation of her history, we ended up getting her medical records. And through the whole process, I realized that they had diagnosed Lou Gehrig's without really definitively exhausting all possible medical avenues of investigation. And I pushed and probed and got her to go back and get some more testing. Well, don't we find out about 6 months down the road that she actually doesn't have ALS? that she had been erroneously been given a terminal disease, illness, diagnosis that she just accepted. And it was through my, maybe unrelentless pursuit of truth in terms of her health that, and the medical system is a little bit different in Canada and America. Like, you can't just easily get a second opinion and things like that. But if you know how to push and advocate for somebody, you can get more information. And we found out that she had actually had Lyme disease, not ALS. This was, probably 15 years ago. She's still alive, living in assisted care. Did I get her out of the wheelchair? No. Did I get her out of a terminal illness diagnosis? Yeah. And that's, we are doctors of chiropractic. We're not technicians of chiropractic. We're doctors of chiropractic. And we go to school to learn how the body works. And it's not that we ever have to diagnose something. Like, that's not necessarily what our job is. People, in a philosophical realm and of chiropractic think we don't diagnose anything. No, but we do know how the body works, and we can, ask questions, and we can advocate for our patients. And so perhaps I think that's one of my greatest miracle stories, because it changed somebody's life, right? In terms of, this woman was expecting to die. We know that the mind is incredibly powerful, and she had been given a terminal diagnosis. And who knows if she may have just accepted that and then just willed herself to go away, to die. The mind is the most powerful tool we have. It's also a beast if you let it take control, right? And so something that I'm really invested in is teaching people how to train their mind. I'm really, I love Eastern spirituality. And I think when you meld that together with science, you have a very powerful tool. I think our greatest tool as chiropractors is our compassion for humanity and how we can advocate for our practice members and our patients to move beyond what medicine has, relegated them to this little box. We're not in a box. We're infinitely powerful, right? And that's what we can do. That's the miracle right there, I think.
So do you have any favorite mantras or words of wisdom, kind of different philosophies that you've kind of collected as your favorite over the years?
I would say if you change someone's brain, you change their life. We know that when you adjust somebody, you impact the brain in a positive way. And if you can change somebody's brain, you change their life. The brain controls every cell, organ, and tissue in the body. I used to think there's nothing more important than the brain. Like, if you don't have your brain, you don't exist, right? Which is true. And then I started learning, I teach different types of breath work. And one of them is this heart coherent type of breath work. And they measured the electromagnetic radiations from the heart. And they go at about 3 feet from the body. And in fact, they might go farther, except these magnetometers that they use can't measure any further than 3 feet. But the EMF radiations from the brain only go about 1 inch. The heart, 3 feet, the brain, 1 inch. What is the most powerful part of the body? Wow. Ever notice if somebody says, where are you? Or if you point to yourself, you say, I'm right here. You don't say, I'm right here. You say, I'm right here. I wonder why that is. Interesting.
It resonates with people. The heart resonates with people.
And the heart resonates. This we now know, right? And it resonates at a frequency of vibration that's very similar to the resonant frequency of the planet. They learned that from looking at the EMF radiations or the patterns of radiations that the Earth emits. It's at the same, it's like 0.1 hertz. And it's at the same sort of resonant frequency that when you have a heart resonant coherence in the body, it's at that same resonant frequency. Wow. We should all be breathing in a resonant pattern, right? Check out HeartMath for that, heartmathinstitute.org, heartmath.org, resonant breathing. That's something that I've been teaching lately. It's fantastic.
So change somebody's brain, change their life.
Yeah, see, I got carried away. Change someone's brain, you change their life. Yep.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, McCaffrey's Clinical Mentoring, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, Full Script, your online dispensary, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle!
But
Because it controls everything.
You're right. And it controls our emotional gratitude. It controls our vocational ideas, and our capacity. It changes everything. It changes
Everything. How we think, how we see, how we feel, how we talk. The brain's responsible for us being able to walk, to read a book, to write a book, to paint a masterpiece, to fall in love, to think, to dream. Everything happens right here in this little bony sphere.
Well, let me ask you something else. I know one of the tools for chiropractors is palpation. How many times have you done like an exam of somebody and you palpated and they didn't know that they hurt there?
Oh my God. Almost every time. Almost every time. It's because people are, not only are they disconnected from their bodies, also the job of, you can't possibly be paying attention. And sometimes you don't know, until somebody pokes you there. And it's like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that hurt. You would hear that so many times a day in practice. Chiropractors hear that like all the time. It's a great education tool as well.
But why do you think that we're so disconnected from like knowing where we have like discomfort?
Well, I think some of that is smart. It's a protective tool, right? Like the job of pain is to warn the brain when there's something that you need to pay attention to, which means either it's life-threatening or it's severe enough that it's to the point where it's going to create other problems. And I think, the brain is really smart. And there are, when we talk about pain and nociception is the process, is the sensory experience of sending messages to the brain when there's danger, chemical, physical, emotional danger. And the brain only needs to pay attention and give you the signal that there's pain when there's something that you need to do something about it. So, for example, if you are subluxated and the spine is out of alignment, in its immediate acute sense, maybe that's not life-threatening, right? And so the brain, versus you roll your ankle and it's sprained, and the brain's like, that needs to be rested and maybe iced and elevated and compressed or whatever. And so that's what needs to be paid attention to in the moment. We don't need to pay attention to all these things. There's this idea that you only use 5% of your brain. Number one, that's completely wrong. You use all of your brain. It's just that we're only aware of about 5% of what's going on. Thank God. Pain has a job. It's like the check engine light on your car. It comes on when you need to pay attention to something.
So we have a really cool question in our chat feed here. Caesar asks, hello, Dr. Mo, how can I change my brain?
Oh, what do you have access to? If somebody gets adjusted, you can change your brain. You can change your brain through meditation. You can change your brain through breath work. There's lots of different ways to change your brain. In fact, sitting here right now, Caesar, you're listening to this live feed and your brain is changing right now, because what makes us unique is not that we have all these neurons, but it's the interconnectedness of those neurons. And we're sitting here right now, your brain is actually rewiring because hopefully you're learning something. If you want to change your brain, read new things, listen to great podcasts, check out this one. Obviously is awesome because here we are having this incredible conversation, and your brain, through its neuroplastic adaptive ability, is actually creating new connections right now. If you want to, if you're talking about changing your physiology and your state in a more specific way. Like, let's say you want to learn to be calmer to reduce your sympathetic output, then obviously getting adjusted, meditation, breath work, those are my 3 favorite things. And moving your body, 4 favorite things. 5 favorite things: eating good food. Eat well, move, breathe, meditate, think. That's the way.
One of the things I like to biohack people to do is to send a message to 5 people that mean something to you and tell them that you love them.
Yeah, that's nice too.
And when you connect yourself with that frequency of love, that manifests something greater inside of that heart of yours. And it gets you out of that idea that people, like we talked about before we started, as people think they know who you are. They think they know how you feel. They think you know how we're assimilating. But if you don't tell somebody nice, things about themselves, then people just assume. And that's, what that always stands for. You make an ass out of you and me.
Yeah.
But it also leaves us a little vacant, because I think when you tell people you love them and that they're doing a good job, it could be that one little thing that I said to you earlier that might change your brain. It might change your heart, and it might change the momentum that you put into the next person, because I gave you something that no one else was going to give you. But I found it upon me to say, hey, you know what, Dr. Mo, I think you're doing a great job. It's really cool to see you working so hard during the slowdown zone. And you know what? I recognize you. I acknowledge you. I love you. I support you. And I see how great of an impact you're making, because you're taking the time to actually take your educated mind and bestow that to other people. And that's what makes this platform so important, because other people can hear your story now. And I find so much value in being, like, if you will, like the Charlie Rose of like chiropractic, or whoever it might be, whoever we want to assimilate,
Sure.
the Jay Leno of our messaging. But I think that there has to be some type of a popular output for people to pay attention to. If not, it's just like, as Ed would say, wandering generalities.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, that's beautiful, Jim. Thank you so much. That's, it's people like you and Luke, you guys give your time so much to our profession. And I think that was what creates real community, right? And that's, I think, a lot of what we've been missing. Something that's happening during this period of isolation is, I think, we're learning what we lack. And I think community is something that a community of like heart-centered people, that we're just all loving on each other, not bitching and fighting. That's a beautiful thing. Thank you.
So one of the core questions we always like to ask people is, where do you see the profession of chiropractic going? I mean, you can say 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Let's future pace what the beautiful profession of chiropractic is going to become.
Yeah. So like, I could pick the dark side and fortune tell in that way. And that's possible that it's not going the way it should. I'm going to imagine, though, that we're going to see great advances in our profession. And we have to do a few things for that to happen, though. Number one, and I think even if we don't get all on the same perspective, I think we might have to get on the same brand. I had a great conversation one day with some other, thought influencers in our profession, and we were on a panel. I can't remember who they all were. David Fletcher was one of them. And we were talking about, like, how do we get, what's going to move chiropractic into the next, moving beyond 10%, having access to 10% of the population. Well, how are we going to reach critical mass? And we all agreed that it was going to be in branding. Social media and the internet has changed everything. Look, we're never going to get everybody in chiropractic to agree on either what our scope is or, what our philosophy is. But what if we could get them to agree on brand? Now that, and then pool those resources, I think we could finally start to reach a greater percentage of the population. Now, here's how I think we're going to get there. And I'm biased because, as a scientist, I like to think that we can take that And now that we have so much good science, if we start to actually use it and understand it, that's going to create much. If we have a deeper understanding of the science, we can have more meaningful conversation. And, I've been reading a lot about even how medical doctors don't read their own journals. They don't read research. Where do medical doctors get a lot of their information from? And that is through pharmaceutical reps. Hey, there's your brand. That's a brand. And obviously some brands do a lot better than others, right? So if we can get chiropractors to start to understand science a little bit better. Now, I know that they're not going to want to go and read journals. I don't love reading journals all the time, but I'm really invested in deeply understanding it. And, there's different resources for us to learn more about the science. And I think if we own that piece and start to talk about it more, then that enables us a seat at the table that can drastically change our experience. And those, there are certainly factions within our profession that don't think that chiropractic is anything beyond musculoskeletal. I don't know where their heads are. They must be in the sand, because there's plenty of neuroscience research that show the impact of chiropractic on the brain. That's getting bigger and bigger. We need more money. We need more research to be able for that to expand. But, for some of these big world type organizations to come out and say that chiropractic doesn't impact neurology or doesn't impact the immune system, I think that's actually intellectually irresponsible.
Well, one of the things I wanted to just mention is when somebody's head's in the sand, the first thing that somebody sees.
Yes. I've seen those cartoons.
I always like to bring a little bit of humor to the moment as well. And it is a very powerful thing to talk about when it comes to who's making the decisions as to how the brand gets transcended.
Yeah.
And that's why, early on, Luke and I were like, well, let's make a documentary on chiropractic. Let's make a film that time capsules the evolution of this profession. Let's show people what is possible right now. Where are we? What is our measuring stick for 2016 when we made the movie? How have we changed now in the past 4 years since the release of that movie? And why are we at a peril of people discrediting chiropractic for changing people's lives to just a modality as a technician, as you said earlier, to just, correct somebody's musculoskeletal disfigurement? But when you change the brain, you change the process. And that's the part of why we made that movie and interviewed over 50 people and researched the history of the profession. And we didn't look in science journals to find out what chiropractic was. We watched YouTube videos of Reggie Gold. We watched YouTube videos of Jim Sigafus. We watched YouTube videos of the Palmers. We watched YouTube videos of, Sid Williams. I read early stories of Sid Williams' books. I started to see what the parallels were with humanity involved with chiropractic. And I started to really fall in love with the chiropractic narrative, saying that, hey, we need nothing extra, just our hands and a heart and the education to treat people. And some people say, hey, we don't treat anything. But when somebody trusts you with their health, you're doing something to them. You're making a positive impact on somebody's life because of not only the 125 years of chiropractic, but now where we're headed, as we're talking about, we need to rebrand to a position where we all agree on one thing. It's, we could go down the road of saying, hey, this is what dentists tell their patients. This is what dentists tell their practice members. Whatever the dentist says, the population agrees to.
Yeah, they got in early into the system, right? They did well. I mean, I think if we could all embrace the salutogenic model, the body is a self-healing organism, and that chiropractic helps improve the body's chance, our human beings' chance to have optimal health and well-being. And we do that through correcting subluxation and removing interference of the nervous system. Easy for me to accept that.
Well, the other side of the story is why it's so confused is because the other faction that wants to change the languaging and the truth of chiropractic are bought by the other people selling the other stuff. And it's hard for us to realize that we have wolf in sheep's clothing running around the profession, assimilating to be chiropractors when all they want to do is strip the rights for chiropractors?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ego, politics, and money tied into what's happening to, really keep our profession rooted in a musculoskeletal model. And that's really evident here in countries like Canada and Australia. And a lot of it comes down to money and ego. It really does. And access to insurance and so much that, there's so few truly philosophical schools that are left that are driving and graduating those kinds of doctors, and always the dollar is always, dangled out there as the prize. And that's something that makes me sad.
So can you tell us some of your favorite marketing strategies and what you do to get your message out there?
Yeah. So I used to, I used to just use social media for fun, and laughs, and now I use it mostly for educating. So every Monday I put out a Dr. Mono's post that is about some way that chiropractic either impacts the brain or some positive research about what's happening with chiropractic. That's purely educational, something I put out there so that people get the message. And a lot of those posts get shared many, many times. And I get so many messages and feedbacks on those posts I put out on Mondays. That's through Facebook and Instagram. And then through the Prana Foundation community, I post a lot of other resources, webinars, things like that we do. My wife, Dr. Tamara McIntyre, just did an immune system webinar, free webinar for our community a couple of weeks ago that filled up so fast. And so I think that, we have a responsibility. If you're somebody who, I'm really conscious of what I post. And because people are paying attention, right now I'm considered an expert in our community, in our profession. And so I'm really conscious of how I use it to not, I think about what I'm posting because I know people are going to take it and they're going to be like, oh, either they respect me or they're going to reshare it themselves. And so when I post things, I very often like to, I'm always really cognizant that of people are watching it and they're going to take it to heart. And so I always ask myself, is this 100% in alignment with my values? Yes. Do I feel like it represents that it's factual? Yes. Is it kind? And then it gets posted. I don't know if that answered your question. I can't remember what your question was now, Luke. What was your question again?
Marketing. How do you market?
How do I market? I use social media. That's the only way. Yeah, pretty much.
So pertaining to the future, if you had a chance to sit down with a first quarter chiropractor right now, what would your advice be to them?
Be open as you possibly can. Be open to everything. Learn as much as you can. Do not take your education as just being a piece of paper so that you can get out and start adjusting people. Education is really, really important. Dig in as deep as you possibly can and be open to everything that comes across your plate. There's no mistakes when it comes to, things that you encounter in your very short time in schooling. That's what I would say. And find a great mentor, someone that can, guide you on your path.
Now take somebody else right now that's been out for a decade and they just got bamboozled with losing 50% of their practice. What is your recommendation to them for rebuilding?
That doctor means teacher, and that what makes us unique is that we can be great advocates for our community. And so you have the knowledge, hopefully you've done the work, that you have the knowledge to be a leader right? We're passionate, knowledgeable people that we can be leaders in our community. And that if you can be a support and resource for your community right now, even if that means that you can't be out there adjusting people, and I know that some docs can, some docs are actually mandated to not be able to do that, then find other ways to be a resource. Yeah. And this will be over soon. It's going to be over soon. And if you can stay connected with your community and be, a passionate, kind, knowledgeable resource, stay in touch with your community.
That's all great advice. I love that you can take it from the person that's the neophyte all the way to the expert level practitioner.
Yeah.
And all in between. I think, for me, I would tell somebody to start creating their battle plan and enacting it now. And when you're ready for the reopening, as you said, this will pass, be on full offense now. And like we talked to Patrick Porter earlier, and he's like, well, I hope people aren't just looking at this as a way to like drink more beer and hang out and have a long extended weekend.
Yeah, I hope they're taking the time to evolve to the highest possible level that they can as human beings. And then also, like you and I share, Ed Osborne is our coach, and he's got great programs that people can dig into as well if they want to get into the online community and start to be able to navigate that more skillfully. That also has been a great resource, obviously, for me.
Yeah, when you invest in yourself and you pay attention to the resources and the tools that you have access to, that changes your brain.
Yeah, definitely. My brain's changed. My brain's seriously become rewired in the last 4 months. I wasn't doing any online work up until probably late November. And I am exist almost exclusively on right now. I had so many speaking engagements. My calendar was full for this year. Almost everything has been canceled. And so everything that I've been doing has been online. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without, becoming part of the Inner Circle Mastermind with Dr. Ed. It's totally changed the trajectory of how we are, living in our online business.
So when you're not researching and learning and teaching, what kind of books do you read that aren't specifically research-based? What kind of podcasts do you listen to? What are some of your hobbies?
Hobbies. I always laugh when people ask me about hobbies. I'm like, I don't know if I have a hobby. I ride a motorcycle. I guess that's a hobby. That's a passion of mine. I think that's the only thing that would be classified maybe as a hobby. I can tell you I've spent a lot more time meditating than I have. I've got a lot more time that I spend on the mat. What do I read? What the heck? I love reading about spirituality. So Pema Chodron is somebody that I read a lot. I haven't been reading a lot of fiction, I got to say. I read so much science. I've read so much stuff about this bloody virus right now. And there's something I can tell you for certain. We don't know a hell of a lot in terms of how this is all going to play out. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about that today because hopefully this is everybody's been talking. It's just constant streaming on social media. Advice I can give is pick a couple of good sources and don't spend all day on social media, with the exception of, great podcasts like this.
So where can people go if they want to learn more about you or the Prana Foundation or your research? What are some websites and resources you could get?
Oh, awesome. So drmoknows.com, DRMOKNOWS, drmoknows.com is the interactive science and patient education program that I currently run, where every 2 weeks we come together to look at a different research paper, and I break that down. And then not just explain you the paper, but tell you how you can talk about it with your patients and educate them. Not that, from my perspective, when I teach people science, it's not because I want them to go and regurgitate what the paper said. I want them to take that information and own it themselves in a way that they feel comfortable conveying it to educate their patients. And I think that's where we can have the biggest difference. Our foundation website is the Prana Foundation, and Prana is spelled Prana, thepranafoundation.org. And also they can come to, it's our community, our private Facebook page is called the Prana Foundation as well. And anybody can join that. Just request to join, and it's free. And that is a ton of resources and great community there. We just launched a new mentorship program. It's a group mentorship program for new graduates and associates that are stuck in transition right now, where we've had so many people reach out to us where their plans have just fallen apart. And they're really struggling to know what to do in this time. And so we've launched a program. We're taking 20 new docs to help them get through this time. And that's almost full. There's only, I think, a handful of spots left there. And that's going to be a weekly meeting with this group to really help them navigate this financial instability. And like, oh my God, this is what I was going to do. And suddenly I'm, out in the cold. So I think, go there, go to the Prana Foundation community page, and that will give you access to everything that I'm involved in through Dr. Mo knows. drmoniqueandrews.com. Yep. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. Give me a follow there at Dr. Monique Andrews. Yep.
So one of the things I've heard chiropractors say since I've been in the profession, there's never been a greater time to be a chiropractor than now. Does that resonate with you today?
Yeah, I think we could say that at any point, but you have to back that up with a reason why. Do you know what? We have more science right now showing that what we do as chiropractors impacts the nervous system. I don't believe we're spine doctors. I think we're nervous system doctors. It's a neuromusculoskeletal profession, and it's time to start focusing on the neuro. And I think we have more science now than we ever have, and that's what makes it the best time to be a chiropractor.
Well, thank you for being our guest today. It's been a real honor to connect with you and to have you share your message to our community. And if you guys want to know more about Dr. Mo, she's now an expert marketer. And go over to drmoknows.com and join the movement and learn from her and assimilate the information that she provides to you and get some certainty around the neuroscience of chiropractic and go out there, give love, serve, and beyond that, become educated.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you.
It was nice seeing you today, and hope to see you again soon.
All right. Awesome. Take care.
See you, Mo.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.